Your life has no meaning. There is no evil. There is no good. There is no justice to be done to your friend that got raped, killed, whatever disease, whatever problems you have. Don't you get it? The universe has a pitiless indifference to anything.
Tonight, we're going to be going over how atheism is stealing our joy. It's a segment from a pastor, preacher, minister, probably not a minister. He looks more or less like a youth pastor, something like that. Anyways, we're going to be going over a video where he is going to be claiming that atheism just steals the joy out of life. It makes everything meaningless and, you know, just there's no point in living, I guess, in his worldview. So tonight, we're going to be going over how atheism steals all of our joy. If you want to fuck around and find out how atheism manages to accomplish this, then please stay tuned. What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Tonight, we're going to be looking at this guy right here, who seems to think that atheism steals our joy. And I'm interested to see how he gets there. I just cannot imagine how in the world he would get to atheism steals joy. Because atheism is just not being convinced that a God exists. It's not believing that some supernatural wizard out there spoke an incantation and created everything and controls your life. And I feel like that's a reasonable position to have. So let's see what his problems are. He's got to have some good problems, right? Solid ones, like solid as shit after eating Taco Bell.
See, here's the problem with trying to answer our level of stress and anxiety and fear in life by technique. It's not by technique, because there's a whole worldview that is hopeless and going nowhere that undergirds our whole culture.
It undergirds our whole culture, this worldview that's hopeless and going nowhere. What the fuck on earth could that be? I mean, I know it's not atheism, because atheism is just not being convinced that a God exists. Once you get that shit out of your life, once you're not concerned with what God wants out of you and what God needs and all this other shit, kind of seems like your world opens up, doesn't it? Like you're open to doing more things. Like, oh, I can't do that because God don't like it. Oh shit, I don't believe in God, so I guess I can do that thing.
Atheism is not going to create peace in your life, right?
Okay, so stopping right here, I agree. Atheism is the quote unquote goal of atheism is not to create peace. Atheism is a description of whether or not you believe in a God, and that's no, you don't believe in a God. That's the description. That's all that it does. So at no point have we ever portrayed atheism as trying to give us peace, or atheism even as a worldview. Like he talked before about it being a worldview. It's not even a worldview. It's just, I don't believe in a God. And that's it.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
If that's your worldview, you've got a really myopic worldview there, because you're not included. Like that's not a full worldview. That's one aspect of a worldview.
We are just animals living by instinct. There's no morality. There's no purpose. There's no meaning. You die and that's it.
Okay. So there's weird, it's kind of a roller coaster there for a little bit. So yes, you die and that's it as far as your own experience goes. We don't know if anything happens after this life. I don't think that we'll ever know whether or not something happens after this life until we get to that point. Like, there's no way for the living to know if there's anything after we die. Like, that's just something that's never going to be able to be known. But as far as our consciousness goes, we, for all intents and purposes, we do not have any indication that our consciousness continues after we die. After energy stops flowing through this biomechanical body that we have, our consciousness ceases to exist. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I think that we would go insane if we lived forever. At some point, we would just go completely insane.
Here's Johnny.
But to say that there's no meaning in life, that's got to come with an asterisk. Is there transcendental meaning in the form of the only point in life is to praise God? Like, that's what he's talking about with meaning. Is there a meaning to life, or God gives you meaning? That meaning that he's talking about is just to praise God. It has nothing to do with you as a person, like what you want to do with your life or what your life means to you or means to others. That's not what it's talking about. He's talking about just praising God. That's the ultimate meaning to life, or the only meaning to life for Christians of this ilk. I don't believe in that kind of meaning. I don't think there's some kind of universal transcendental meaning. I think that we all create our own meanings. I think that you can give your own life meaning. You can find meaning in your life in various ways. Your meaning doesn't have to be the same meaning as somebody else. Now, granted, I'm sure that whatever you've chosen to be the meaning of your life is the same meaning as some other group of people. Like there's a whole demographic that have that same meaning, sure. But what I'm talking about is this transcendental meaning to life. He also said there's no purpose to life. If you were to talk about some kind of transcendental purpose, it would be to survive and propagate, I guess. Would if you had to put a purpose on life in general, that would be it. But even then, I don't think that that's necessarily the only purpose to life. Like we've developed our central nervous system enough to where we have this sophisticated understanding of the purpose of our lives. And, we kind of give our own lives purpose and meaning. Just because we don't have some book telling us what that purpose and meaning is, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that I have my own subjective purpose and meaning. And that's where a lot of Christian apologists and I guess just general Christians out there get very uncomfortable, because they have to be told by their book as to what their purpose in life is, or at least that's how they portray it. I don't know if that's how they actually feel. That's how they portray it to people in videos, on whenever they're talking to other people.
We've been teaching that for about 150 years. No wonder everyone's stressed out.
Nobody's been teaching that for 150 years. What are you talking about? I have no idea what in the fuck you could be meaning here.
What the fuck you talking about, man? The carrier. What's in the fucking carrier?
Nobody's teaching atheism to anybody. I mean, people are confiding in others and talking about it once they get to an appropriate point in their life. I don't think that anybody should force atheism on anybody, who does force their worldview on people, even children, finding subversive ways in which to indoctrinate their children. Religious people, just like this guy. I'm not going to say all religious people, but people of this ilk, they definitely do.
Listen to Richard Dawkins. This is a great quote from Richard Dawkins, the very famous atheist.
Yeah, why is it always that they bring up Dawkins? Like, I don't understand it. Like, I get that he's kind of been at the forefront of the community in the past, but I don't know why apologists like this or modern day religious leaders always harken back to Richard Dawkins. I cannot think of a single atheist, which I know that there are atheists that look up to Dawkins as far as like a leader in the community or whatever. I don't. I think that we definitely need better leaders out there, but I just don't understand why these people are so out of touch with the demographic of atheists.
This is what he says in one of his books, Evolutionary Thinker. Some of you are exactly there and you're thinking, you don't believe in God yet, you're journeying. This is what he says.
Who are you talking to? You are in the midst of a sermon and you think there are atheists in the crowd?
Are you fucking serious, Karen?
Okay, so there might be one or two atheists that got suckered into coming there by their friends. Like, oh, hey, come on, if it's all just make-believe, then it's not gonna hurt, right? Granted, those are the kind of people that might be there. But he's in the midst of a sermon. All of these people already believe the shit that he's about to say. But whatever criticism he has of Dawkins' quote, they already believe what he is going to tell them.
The total amount of suffering per year in the natural world is beyond all decent contemplation. During the minute that it takes me to compose this sentence, Thousands of animals are being eaten alive. Others are running for their lives, whimpering with fear. Others are slowly being devoured from within by parasites. Thousands of all kinds are dying of starvation, thirst, and disease. In a universe of electrons and selfish genes, blind physical forces and genetic replication, some people are gonna get hurt, other people are gonna get lucky, and you won't find any rhyme or reason in any of it, nor any justice. The universe that we observe has precisely the properties that we should expect. If is, at the bottom, there is no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pitiless indifference.
Well, yes. That's a really long, convoluted way of saying the universe doesn't give a shit about your suffering. The universe doesn't give a fuck about what you think or any of the problems that you have in your life. It does not give a shit about you. And we should expect it to, because it's not a living thing. The universe is not living for all that we can tell, right? I mean, obviously, shit could come up in the future and it's like, oh, the universe is living. And it's like, well, fuck me. But for as far as we know now, the universe is not a living organism and does not give a shit about us. It just, nature is a cold-hearted bitch because it just operates. Just give you a for instance here, something that I saw this week that's utterly fucking terrifying, okay? I saw it on Reddit this week. Apparently up in, I believe it was New Hampshire or something, it's unusually warm up there, which is causing a explosion in the tick population. And recently, I guess somebody was in the woods and they came across this moose up there, and it was overrun with ticks that were just fucking huge because there was like thousands of ticks on this fucking moose. They were all bleeding this moose dry of its blood. And it's like, that's nature. Nature just operates. It doesn't give a fuck about you. It doesn't give a fuck about that moose. Doesn't give a fuck about the ticks. Doesn't give a fuck about any of it. It just happens. And we're here to suffer through this hellscape called Earth. Now, I don't know if you guys know about like super habitable planets. That would be planets that are far more suited for life than ours is. And those exist out there in the universe. So the question is, why would God choose to put us on this hellscape that's reminiscent of the Hunger Games compared to a planet that's better suited for life? I have no fucking idea, other than he was bored one day and decided to create a real life Hunger Games, in which I guess another version of Hunger Games popped up in the middle of it. But nature doesn't give a shit about you or your problems or your suffering, and that's fine.
Good night. Thanks for coming. Your life has no meaning. There is no evil. There is no good. There is no justice to be done to your friend that got raped, killed, whatever disease, whatever problems you have. Don't you get it? The universe has a pitiless indifference to anything.
And here I'll criticize Christianity, because he's saying that, oh, this universe without a God means that there's no justice for rape victims, right? There's no justice for them. Which is not true, because there's justice for some of them. And of course, others never see justice. Also, in Christianity, all that rapist has to do is beg for forgiveness, promise he'll never do it again, and then spend the rest of his life, whatever amount of time that is, spend the rest of his life being a quote unquote good Christian. And that's all you got to do. In Christianity, there's two different views. You're either saved purely by grace, like just the fact that you believe in Jesus and everything like that's going to get you into heaven. And then there are those that think that, regardless of that faith, you have to do good works in order to get into heaven. That would be like the Catholics. The Catholics require both faith and good works. But then there's also the group of people that think that it takes both of them. Typically, this is kind of rolled up into the you're saved by grace, because what they'll do is they'll play a no true Scotsman fallacy and say that, oh, well, true Christians don't do bad things. I feel, yeah, it is some bullshit there, hon. I don't see a lot of justice that's given by Christianity, because if your justice system has such an obvious hole that you can just beg for forgiveness, promise you'll never do it again, and not break any laws after, that means that rapist will never see justice. So I don't see the value of this guy's particular version of or flavor of Christianity versus pitiless indifference, as he's making it out to be, because there's no justice as far as eternal justice for the rapist in that situation. And this is not a way to convert somebody, at least in my opinion. It's not a way to convert somebody. This should never convince anyone that there's some kind of ultimate justice to be had. The only way that somebody can get justice for bad shit that's done to them is through our own justice system, by trying them and sentencing them to jail or whatever kind of punishment we deem necessary for it. And I can guarantee you none of them are going to be eternal suffering in a burning pit of hell for finite crimes. If you really think about what hell means and why you're sent to hell, you're either sent to hell for finite crimes, I guess, against humanity, just finite crimes against God, if you will. And those finite crimes against God could be as simple as just not believing in him, or not believing in Jesus, or questioning whether or not Jesus resurrected. Any of those things could be the potential thing that gets you thrown into the pit of hell. So I don't see any justice in Christianity.
There's no meaning. No wonder we're stressed.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons for us to be stressed. It's not just there's no meaning. Like even Christians that aren't concerned with meaning are stressed, and there's multiple reasons for it. We're currently in a pandemic, which I can't remember how long ago this was, but right now we're in a pandemic. The gap between the richest people in America and the poorest people in America keeps growing, and wages don't get better, and all this other shit. Like, there's so many things to be stressed about. Like, meaning to your life is probably not at the top of the list for a lot of people.
We've even taken away the myth level existence that we used to have, where we were part of something.
What does that mean? Like, I didn't even, like, nobody knew on Twitter when I asked it on Twitter. What does that mean? Myth level existence. That's what he said. Let's go back a little bit so we get it. We've even taken away the myth level existence. What does that mean? I don't know what myth level existence means, and I've been racking my brain about what it could mean. We've even taken away the myth level existence that we used to have, where we were part of something. By not believing in God, you've taken away this myth that he's a part of, as well as all the Christians are a part of. So I guess maybe he's loathing the idea of losing a comfortable lie to him. Or, well, not lie. I wouldn't say myths are lies, but this comfortable, I'm trying to accurately describe it, because lie is not a good word to describe it. A comfortable untruth. Because a myth is not going to be true to reality. So it's a comfortable untruth that you can tell yourself to make yourself not stressed. Is that what he's getting at here? It might be what he's getting at, but I really have no fucking clue.
We were part of an adventure. We were part of doing something meaningful with our life, that even if life handed us a bad hand, we still had some transcendent purpose to fight for, some meaning to frame our life within.
Why does that all go away when you don't believe in a God? I don't understand why all of that has to go away. I don't understand why all of that, everything that he said, it has to go away when you don't believe in God. You can still be part of something bigger than yourself. You can still have meaning in your life. You can still do all of those things. It's just God isn't at the center of it. God's not at the forefront of it. God is not the reason why you're doing those things. You are the reason why you're doing those things. You want to do those things, and so you're going to go out there and do them. You don't need somebody to tell you to go and do it because you already want to do it. I don't understand why, if you don't believe in a God, that means you lose all meaning in your life. You're just some fucking couch potato that lays there jerking off and watching CNN, I guess. I don't know why you're jerking off watching the news, but, you know, none of this makes sense in the first place.
And atheism and agnosticism has taken that away.
Atheism and agnosticism has taken that away. So it's not just atheism, it's agnosticism too. It's just not knowing whether or not a God exists. Regardless of whether you believe in a God, it's just not knowing if a God exists. That takes away all your joy too. That steals your joy away from you. It makes you stressed out. Not to mention the fact that, you know, pretty much everybody's stressed out regardless of what religion you're in, or not in, rather. It's so fucking crazy to me how they make it sound so dramatic to not believe in God. It's like, you don't believe in God? How do you have meaning in your life? Oh, well, I mean, you know, I just sort of give myself meaning. You know, I find meaning in things that I do. I just sort of construct it for myself. What do you mean you construct it for yourself? You need a book to tell you to do that. You need God at the foot. Everything you do has to be for God. And I can't process a world where you're not doing everything for God. I've never understood that. Like, even as a Christian, I never understood doing everything in your life for God. Like, God comes first in everything that you do. And I'm just sitting here like, God's not coming first whenever I'm playing on my Xbox. God's definitely not coming first, at any other point in my life. God definitely didn't come first when I was going for, my master's degree. I remember in a Bible study one time, I thought God wanted me to be a teacher. And I quickly found out that I did not want to be a teacher. And so I changed course and I became an engineer. Of course, I figured out along the way what kind of engineer I wanted to be. But the fact is like, I started off like, God wants me to teach the children of the world. And then it became, I'm just a fucking engineer because that's what I'm good at. I don't know. It's weird. All right, heathens, I'm so glad that you were able to join me tonight. All in all, for this video, I feel like it was very overdramatic about what it means to lose your faith, or not to have God at the forefront or at the center of everything that you do. And one thing that he said that I highly disagree with is this whole idea that there's no justice whatsoever without God. And I find that even with God, there's still no guaranteed justice. And in fact, the justice provided by Christianity is a lot looser and has a lot more holes in it, wider holes in it, than like our own justice system. Because if you think about it, if all the rapist had to do, using his example, if all the rapist had to do was get on his knees and beg for forgiveness, then, I feel like we would definitely never convict any rapist whatsoever, and there would literally be no justice to be had unless they're repeat offenders and they're like lying about, being sorry about raping somebody. I mean, if they're not going to suffer any kind of consequences for it, then they're probably going to do it again. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. If you're leaving out right now, please smash that like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And hey, while you're at it, why don't you leave us a comment down there in the comment section? That helps us out a lot with the algorithm. And hey, don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.